Hello, this is Jack Gill and welcome to Redmen Academy. We're back with our Premier League Youngsters to Watch series. This is part 3 now. If you haven't already watched the first 2 parts, head over and watch those. We're starting with the Manchester clubs today. I'm joined by James as always.
Hello.
For this one, and we're going to start with Manchester City, James, a team that's top of the under-18s Premier League, but they've been struggling at times in Premier League 2 this season. Who was your first pick for Man City?
So I had Jaden Braff, who plays for the 23 side, and he's probably the reason why they're not rock bottom anymore. You know, his goals have been so important. He's got 9 goals and 1 assist in 16 Premier League 2 games. And obviously, I think just before Christmas, they were dead bottom just behind us, and now they're, I want to say, 8th place now. Which, they have improved massively since Christmas. And, they are clearly a very good side, but I think they've suffered at times like we have where they've lost players, they've had players in and out of that team. But Jaden Braff's been incredible for them. I know he only stepped up from the under-18s last season. And then obviously the year before that, he arrived from Feyenoord in Holland. So he's only had about 18 months in England, but he's absolutely smashing it. He's doing really well.
Absolutely. One of my picks is a player that follows what you just said there, where he's been in and around the first team this season, and he would have been in that under 23s as much as possible, if not. It's 18-year-old centre-back Taylor Harwood-Beillis. He's got close to the first team this season. He looks a very good player. He's represented England from under 16 level right the way up to under 20 level where he's playing at now. It was obviously playing in the Youth Cup final that I was at last year, where, of course, they lost to us. He made his debut for Man City in the EFL Cup earlier on in the year against Preston. He scored his first professional goal against Port Vale in the FA Cup, I believe. Look, I think he's going to be a star. He's a modern centre-back. He plays very well with the ball at his feet. I think he's been absolutely superb when I've seen him play for the City first team and for the City under 23s. And even for the under-18s last season, City have a real centre-back problem this season, James, their first team. And this may be a player to take them forwards and change that.
Yeah, even so obviously they've got Garcia, so haven't they, Eric Garcia?
Yeah.
Who's a very, very good centre-back as well. And he has been with the first team nearly all season, hasn't he? But he's not really had a sniff. I know he played against Watford when they hammered them 8-0. I think he started that game, didn't he? Or he came on as a substitute.
The interesting thing about Eric Garcia, and I didn't pick him because I believe he's slightly older than Harwood-Beillis. So I think
a bit older, yeah.
And close to the first team right now. But Eric Garcia is very, very good at football, and not just that, he's also a coach as well, I believe, for a young Man City team. Okay. And at times, Pep Guardiola has been said that this Eric Garcia has helped him out with his tactics at times, which I find absolutely crazy and may show where this lad is going to go in the future. He may end up being a brilliant coach after his footballing career, but I think the two of them, Eric Garcia and Taylor Harwood-Beillis, have a really good footballing career ahead of them.
Yeah, I had no idea that he did any coaching actually.
Yeah.
But I mean, he is a very intelligent player, and the way he reads the game is brilliant. So it makes sense, when you think about it. But you don't really see that at all. I've never heard of a youth player, coaching at the smaller youth teams. So I mean, it ties him up well for the future, doesn't it? It shows that he has got that sort of ability. You can be a great player and be a terrible manager, but he's putting in the time now when your football career inevitably ends, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And my next pick was a player that I spoke about a lot before, James. James is probably bored of hearing me mention him now. But Liam Delap, son of Rory Delap, I've watched him a few times this season, and he's outstanding. The first time I came across this lad was when we were reporting on a Liverpool versus City under 18s match towards the start of the season, and he was outstanding. He ran the game. I thought Liverpool were the better team that game for the majority of the game, but we ended up losing the game because of how good this lad was. He was absolutely outstanding. I know we've played City 3 times this season at under 18s level, and he's ran the game in every single game, really. I think he is a super player, and it's interesting because I've got his stats here. He's scored 7 goals and 6 assists in 11 games for the under-18s this season. You know, he's a player that looks an outstanding talent. He's played twice for the under-23s and got an assist to his name. He's a player that should be playing more consistently for the under-23s, James, isn't he? But you can see why Man City are desperate to keep him in their under-18s who are flying at the top of the league.
Yeah, it's getting him game time where he's playing well. It's all good that he'd be playing with the 23s, but if he's not putting in those numbers, he mightn't be learning as much. At least give him some run, get him some confidence. You know, help his team, his mates, get that league title wrapped up, and then go from there. He's going to step up next season, and he's going to have an outstanding year. You can just tell now, can't you? Because technically he's brilliant, and he seems to do everything so easily. Okay, he hasn't got the throw-in that his dad's got, but he has everything else in abundance, doesn't he?
Yeah, we spoke about Leighton Stewart not yesterday, the day before when we did part 2. This lad, very similar. He's got a bit of everything to his game, and he looks like an outstanding player. So it's going to be very interesting what comes of Liam Delap, but I think he is going to be an incredible player in the future. Who was your second pick, James?
So I had James McAtee, who obviously plays with Liam Delap in that under-18s team. He's only turned 17 in October. But he's such a complete player. And I've got here this season in the under-18s Premier League, he's got 10 goals and 6 assists in 17 matches. Like, that's an incredible return. And like when I've seen him play, I've watched him play with Liverpool earlier on in the season, and he's everywhere. He's such a good player, and he's so confident on the ball. He comes through to that sort of middle area. He plays as sort of like a 10, but maybe a little bit deeper at times or on the wing. And he loves drifting inside and having a shot. And you can see from his stats that he's very good at that, and he gets good goals from it too, and he get good goal return. But obviously, you've got Cole Palmer too. Yeah, play with these lads, and together they're an absolutely incredible trio, aren't they? They're just unstoppable when you play them.
There's some real talents in that City under-18s team, and for anyone that's not aware of the Manchester City under-18s, I suggest you go over and watch them if you can, because they really are a good side. Our under-18 side is very, very good. But City, I think, are just better than that.
Above, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are some incredible players in there. They're definitely worth a watch. They really are. But Manchester United now, James. Who was your first pick from United? We know obviously they've got a lot of youth players being used in their first team this season. There's obviously Angel Gomez and Tati Chong. I hope I said that first name right. I was there or thereabouts. But obviously as well, you got Brandon Williams coming through at left back. But there's so
stay clear of these.
Yeah.
I tried to go for the less obvious lads. So the first lad I went for was Largi Ramazani, which sounds like I've absolutely butchered it. But he's a 19-year-old left winger from Belgium. He can play on the left or the right. He arrived from Charlton in 2017, and he's completely outshined Taith Chong this season. Like, he's outperformed him in goals and assists. He's got 9 goals and 2 assists in just 13 starts. And yeah, he's only arrived, obviously, at his first full season last year, and he didn't have the best year. He was split between the first team, and the under-18s. He only got 2 goals and 5 assists then. But since he's stepped up full time this year, he's been incredible, and he's been easily their most clinical player. And he's probably one of the reasons why they're going to get promoted to the first division next season, because he's that good.
That's the thing, isn't it? Obviously, this United side in the under-23s level are in Division 2, so they've absolutely pummeled teams at times this season. They've seemed to run away with it. But, a lot of these youngsters as well, it'd be interesting to watch them next season and how they do then. And my first pick is James Garner, who is looking outstanding again in the under-23s, and this is one of them that, again, maybe because they're playing in Division 2 and he's at a lot higher level. His main position is defensive midfield, but he can play in numerous roles in that central midfield position. This is the crazy part. So I'll start with his form in Premier League 2. From central midfield, he has 8 goals in 10 games. As he's the United captain. He's played 4 games in the Europa League this season. Also has a substitute appearance from the bench in the Premier League against Norwich. Listen, his path to the United first team may be damaged by the likes of Chong and Gomez, who are a similar age and a similar sort of position. I expect this guy to end up going out on loan, maybe in the summer. I know United turned down some loan moves in January. But James, I think this is a man who is very close to playing first team football on a regular basis somewhere.
I'd say he's probably closer than most. I think he's closer now than Gomez. Gomez seems to have the hype seems to have fizzled out a little bit.
And
And
there's
Gone
rumours
has taken over.
there's rumours he's moving Gomez.
Yeah, to Inter Milan.
Yeah.
From what I've seen, I'm not sure if that's been anywhere near being confirmed, but I think Gone is easily the closest now to that first team. Obviously, he's appeared there already. They know who he is. Like, obviously, you can't ignore that kind of output, that level of talent. But he's just, yeah, I think he'll be regularly playing in the cup games next season. Definitely.
Absolutely. My second pick was a man that I've heard the name of before, and I know a United fan, Karthik Shyamson. There, go and check out his YouTube. I'll put it in the comment section. He really likes the look of Ethan Laird, and he suggested to me to have a look at this lad. He's 18 years old. I know the name because he obviously appeared for Manchester United's first team earlier on in the season away against Astana. They lost, of course, that day, but he can play anywhere along the back four. He can play centre back, right back, left back. Right back's a stronger position. Karthik tells me he's meant to be obviously maybe better than Brandon Williams, who I think has looked very good for United this season, and at times has been just what United need in terms of a player that fights and plays for the badge. Here's his stats to say it all. 3 assists in 10 games for the under-23s this season, and last year he had 5 assists and 2 goals in 11 appearances for the under-18s.
Okay.
I think this lad is closer than a few of the lads we've spoke about to the first team, James. United and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer seem to be wanting to put more faith and more trust in youth lads this season. It seems to be the way forwards that Solskjaer is taking this Manchester United side. He likes youth. He likes using the youth players. And obviously with that left-back spot, Luke Shaw and Brandon Williams have been fighting for it all season. Yeah. We might start seeing Laird coming through.
Yeah, I mean,
as well.
Yeah, United have developed youngsters for a long time now, haven't they?
Yeah.
They've been bringing through young defenders for about 5-6 years now consistently. Most of them haven't made the cut. But you bring through enough lads, you're going to come across a gem sooner or later. And obviously in Brandon Williams, I think they've got that. But if Laird can be anywhere near as good in his breakout year, then there's no reason why he can't be, a good rotation option for them next year.
Absolutely. Who was your second pick, James?
Well, I've got Hannibal Mabry. I think I've said that right. He's a 17-year-old centre mid. Over the summer, he arrived from Monaco for about £6 to £9 million. Obviously, he was only 16 at the time. And then 2 years before that, Monaco spent £1 million to bring him in when he was just 14 from a local academy. So, clearly a massive talent. Yeah. He's been split between both the youth teams this season. In all competitions, he's appeared 18 times, scored once and assisted 6. But the type of player he is, he's so tidy on the ball. He lays it off perfectly. He knows when to pick it up. He knows when to run. I know Liverpool, City and Barcelona are all after him. And he chose United. I don't know why you'd choose United over all these teams. Maybe saw that as an easier route into the first team, probably. But, if you're riding for big money and having a reputation as big as his, he signed a pro Adidas deal when he was 13, which made headlines in France. And that sort of got his name on the stage. And then obviously, a year later, moved for big money again.
Yeah.
He seems like a huge talent, massive talent.
I think everybody in youth football or that knows youth football has heard of this name. He's a player that I think will be a massive talent in the future. It is important to remember the name. I think it's very important also to not put too much pressure on him at this time because, as we say, he's a very young lad and already he's had his name thrown about in multiple directions. He's got loads of huge clubs after him. And it's one of those where it'll still probably take him a few years to come through. But he is an excellent player nonetheless, and as you say, very, very tidy player on the ball. Probably is that he joined United for a better path or an easier path to the first team. But I think if he doesn't get it soon, he'll probably move on somewhere else because, as I said, this lad has a big future ahead of him by the looks of it.
Sure.
Newcastle next, and I went with Yannick Touré first. He's a player that's been around for a few years. He's Senegalese and Swiss heritage. He's got 3 goals and 4 assists in 13 games in Premier League 2 this season. He can play anywhere across the front three, more through the middle, though. He's been compared to Drogba by some Newcastle fans, which I think is a bit too a bit
premature.
like the lad, a bit premature, and obviously he's nowhere near Drogba's ability. But he looks a good player, James.
Yeah. They need strikers. They need forwards. So if they've got someone coming through who knows how to score, he knows how to play, the way Steve Bruce wants to play, then, he's going to get chances, isn't he? Especially with Joe Linton struggling at times.
I was going to say it's an area for Newcastle where they've struggled this season for strikers. They've got Joel Linton through the middle. They've got Carroll, who's injury prone. Joel Linton doesn't provide too many goals. They've got that Muto, who doesn't really seem to get that much game time. They lost Perez, obviously, to Leicester in the summer. So this may be a man to watch in the next couple of years. He may be a man to break through to the first team at Newcastle. And, of course, there's no better time.
Yeah. My first pick was his teammate in the 23s, Tom Allen. He's a 20-year-old right winger. I've got to hear that he made his debut against Rochdale in the cup after obviously impressing Steve Bruce. And then in that game, he assisted Joe Linton's goal. I think it was their second of the game when they won 4-1, I want to say. And in the 23s, he's got 7 goals and 1 assist in 16 games. He's easily been their standout player, I'd say.
Yeah,
from the amount of goals he's been scoring.
Yeah. From right wing as well, he's done really well.
Yeah.
And again, another player that will be looking to break through. I think Newcastle have really invested in their wingers though in the last few years, so it's probably been harder for him. But I think this lad definitely is very close to, sort of moving on from youth football, and maybe we'll see him going out on loan next season. I'll just throw in here that obviously we have made a list of all these names, and we will be following them throughout the youth show over the next few months to see where they end up and what happens with them next season. Just so we can rub it in your faces if we get them right. My second pick was Jack Young, a player that can play defensive midfield or centre back. He's 19 years old. He's got a goal and 3 assists for the under 23s in 17 games this season. Not the best stats. Because he's a centre back stroke DM, so you expect that. He signed a pro contract last July, and he caught Steve Bruce's eye earlier on in the season. He's called him a clever little player and a bright footballer. He's one of these players, James, where I've picked the wrong stats for him, their goals and assists, because he's a much more rounded player than that, and a very defensive player. He looks very tidy on the ball. As Steve Bruce says, he's very clever, and he always looks forward when he's on the ball, and I think he's a bright player for the future. I don't think he'll go out on loan next season. I think he'll stay in the Newcastle academy developing, so Steve Bruce can keep an eye on him. But we've seen at times this season that Steve Bruce is willing to use young players. Yeah. This may be another one.
Yeah, I mean, obviously for defenders, they do tend to take a little bit longer to mature, and they tend to have longer careers than your more offensive players. So there's no need to rush him into that first team. Let him learn his game a little bit longer, maybe send him out on loan the year after, and then obviously he might come back around 21, 22 and look the more complete player.
It's definitely an area on the pitch to look towards, though, isn't there? Because obviously we've seen this season the Longstaff brothers break through, and in a couple of years, if this lad is looking better than them, then he'll definitely challenge for that spot, I think. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that defensive midfield spot going forwards at Newcastle. What happens there, especially if I know Sean Longstaff was linked with clubs like Manchester United last summer. Yeah. Does he get his big money move this summer? We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
Second pick, James?
So I've got Dylan Stevenson. I'm not too sure how to pronounce that. But he plays for the under-18s. He's a first-year scholar, 17 years old, right winger again, same as Tom Allen. But he obviously only graduated from their youth team in the summer. But despite that, he's got 8 goals and 14 goals in 14 games from the wing. Huge talent. They seem to be really impressed with him. And he seems to be a consistent performer. And I think in the summer, if this form keeps up, he'll have bigger teams sniffing around, because he is very highly rated from what I've read about him.
Another right winger that can score a lot of goals for them as well, which is interesting. Obviously, a position that they're not lacking players in now. Got a few coming through, but as you say, it'll be interesting if they've got so many players in that position. Be interested. You assume he'll step up to the under-23s next season, and then
Yeah.
what? Alan, does Alan go out on loan?
I think he'll go out on loan personally, and I think Stephenson seems ready. But then at the same time, he has another year on his side as well. He's obviously only a first year, so there's no need to rush him before he's ready either.
It's definitely worth keeping an eye on that one.
Yeah.
We'll move on to Norwich now. Obviously, the last two teams for part three. We've got, first of all, I'm going to kick it off here, James, with a player you'll have all heard of at some point this season. We spoke about him a lot on the show. It's Adam Idah. 19 years old from Cork Island. He's played 7 games in Premier League 2 this season. He's only got 2 goals and 1 assist, which isn't the best numbers. But it's important to remember that he's playing for a Norwich side who don't have the best under 23s team. They've used a lot of they're using Norwich are a team that like to use a lot of young players in their first team. We've seen that with Neil Farker. Their fullbacks, Lewis and Aarons are very young themselves. They've got players like Godfrey as well, and Todd Cantwell, who Liverpool have been linked with constantly in the last couple of months, who are all very, very young players. And James, we saw in the FA Cup that this man is talented. Adam Idah, got a hat trick against Preston, scored what I thought was a lovely penalty against Tottenham in a penalty shootout in the FA Cup as well. We said that he was linked, obviously, with a loan move in January. That didn't happen. But I think next season is really this man's breakthrough season. If Norwich end up going down, I think he'll get a lot more game time there. Or even if he ends up going out on loan, I think he'll really impress in the lower league next season, James.
Yeah, I mean, I was quite gutted that he didn't end up going to Doncaster in the end. It did it was all but agreed, wasn't it, really, as far as I know? And then he'd come into that form and injuries freed up a bit of time for him. But if they go down next season, I think a lot of League One teams will be gutted that they won't be able to sign him. But at the same time, for him, he's going to get consistent or relatively consistent Championship football that I'm expecting anyway.
Absolutely. Who was your first pick, James?
I've gone with another striker, Gassam Ahedmi, which is definitely wrong. But he's a 19-year-old player. He plays sort of in that space between the number 10 and the striker, from what I've seen, is sort of like a second striker.
Okay.
Only arrived 12 months ago from Spain, played for Manresa. And, he hasn't really been prolific yet. He's only got 6 goals and 1 assist in 14. But you've got to remember this, both of Norwich's teams are second from bottom in their respective leagues, especially the under 23s who are in the second division and second from bottom. So it's really not a good time for them right now.
I'm not going to pretend I've ever heard of that name or that I'd do a better job of pronouncing it than you, James. I'm not aware of this kid, if I'm honest with you. There's not many from Norwich that I am aware of. As you say, they really have been struggling in
It wasn't easy to find them
season. We know there is a lot in the first team, as I mentioned before, that we could have picked them, but we tried to think outside the box. But yeah, it'll be interesting to keep our eye on this lad. We've mentioned just before that it's quite easy to not easy, but easier than most clubs to get a path to that first team at Norwich, and with it's going to be transition next season with a lot of players going when they get relegated, which looks inevitable at the moment. We may see a lot more of their youngsters stepping up and trying to get them back into the Premier League. So it's going to be interesting to follow Norwich and what happens there. The second player I picked was Josh Martin. You may know him as a lad that was formerly at Arsenal, but this time last year, actually, he signed for Norwich. 18 years old. He's got 3 goals in 11 matches for their struggling under 23 side from this season. He's been one of their best players. Norwich, they've given a lot of chances to young players this season, James, and Martin said himself that is why he went there. Do you think this is a man that could get close to their first team next season?
Yeah, but I think at the same time, he'll be gutted that he didn't stick around a little bit longer at Arsenal, because obviously he probably would have got opportunities in the near future under Arteta. So it's a shame.
It's difficult though, isn't it? Because obviously it's a lot more competitive at Arsenal, and if he's looking for a quick way to playing first team minutes and getting more experience in a first team, then I can completely see why he went to Norwich. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Who was your second pick, James?
So I had Tom Dixon-Peters. He's a 17-year-old striker again. He's Scottish under-18 international, first-year scholar, like quite a few of the other lads. But he's got 9 goals in 15 matches this season. this is quite a big year for him. He obviously had to replace players who'd stepped up, etc. But he's slotted in perfectly, and he's provided nearly a third of his team's goals this season. Obviously, they're struggling, but he's still consistently performed, and there's a lot of pressure on him, I think, to sort of ease the hammering they're getting on like almost every weekend, and he's doing it, to the best of his ability, and it's a lot to ask from, a young lad.
Yeah, this is another name I've heard of. He's had a good season, and when we talk about Norwich's youth side's not particularly having the greatest of seasons, the reason they're not even further behind is because of this man. He's been outstanding at times this season, and really, he's stepped up to it when Norwich have asked him to, and I think he's another one to watch, as you say, a first year scholar. So no pressure on him right now. But he's, as you say, he's playing for his country's youth sides. I think he'll probably step up to their under-23s next season, maybe.
Through maybe at Christmas time.
Yeah, if Adam Ider is with the first team more regularly, or what, you expect this lad to step up at some point. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. Maybe we'll be hearing his name a lot more next season. Finally, for part 3, we've got Sheffield United, and me and James ended up picking the same 2 names for this one, unfortunately. Sheffield United, we struggled with this one, James, didn't we? To be honest with you, that's not that Sheffield United are lacking youth talents, but these were 2 standouts really, and they're both players that have benefited from loans away from Sheffield United. I'll do David Parkhouse, and James can do Sam Graham. We've got David Parkhouse, of course, 20-year-old striker. He's from Northern Ireland. He's had numerous loan moves in the last 3 years. His most successful one seems to be at Derry. He scored 11 goals in 34 games over in Ireland there. He's currently at Stevenage on loan, but yet scoring 4 games. This is one that's not necessarily made too many headlines in the last couple of years, but one that has the potential certainly to do that. I don't think he's going to be an excellent player in the future. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this lad is going to be a groundbreaking talent, but I really can see this man getting a permanent move to somewhere in Ireland or in Scotland and doing all right there. I know he's been linked to teams like Celtic. James, what do you make of him?
He does sort of scream, SPL player.
Yeah.
A lot of these players in Scotland do seem to do well in the Irish league, and from what I've seen, it's not a bad league at all, but it seems similar to the SPL. He might end up going down to League One, and he probably will get minutes. Then he probably might make a decent career for himself. But this has, moved to Scotland written all over it.
Yeah,
probably not to Celtic, but one of those mid-table teams. I think would love to snap him up.
And another name that will be following, because obviously at the age of 20 and being linked to clubs like Celtic, you do think he might move from Sheffield United. James, move on to Sam Graham now.
Yeah, so he's a 19-year-old defender, already been on plenty of loan moves already. He was most recently at Notts County. Obviously, he had an injury just before Christmas, I believe, which cut his loan spell short. And I think the club were gutted to lose him because he was having quite a good year. When he came back to the club, he extended his contract. It was due to expire this year, and he extended it by 4 years, I believe. But they seem to, have him in really high regard, and it's unfortunate that loan spell didn't quite work out because it was meant to be a big year for him, and he could have been a big player in their team, and he was until he was, had to come back. But next year, I'd say that he probably gets another loan move, probably to League One. I'd expect it to be League One. And, in the future, there's no rush for him to come through right now. He's only a teenager still. But in a few years, he should be around that first team, I think, pushing.
Absolutely. I think this lad looks like a decent talent. I think, as you say, disappointing to see, obviously, him getting injured earlier on in the year. But I think, if anything, that just means he's a certainty to get another loan move next season. It'll be interesting to see how he does there. You're quite right in saying that Notts County were gutted to lose him. He was a standout performer for them before he got injured. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with this young lad and all the young lads we have spoken about today. But that is it for part 3. We'll be back for part 4 tomorrow. Hope you're all enjoying these videos, and thank you to the couple that have suggested videos for the next few days. Cheers again, James. As always, it has been a pleasure, and we will see you all tomorrow. Ta-ra.